This inherited act of a woman, unfortunately, it creates insecurity in most men because he will minimize asking for sex to avoid numerous rejections. Let's talk about that word. Rejections are an insult to his pride that is often humiliating and embarrassing, especially when he gets rejected by the many ways she displays it, from her mental and physical behavior without even saying the word no. This can hurt the morale of the committed relationship or marriage, as some men feel sexually deceived, cheated, and trapped within his pool of emotional ties with little appreciation to his worth. Constant denial really does strip him of his ego or virile image. He therefore truly feels the effects of the ball and chain syndrome. He is also offended that even when the wife is not in the mood and decides to give him sexual gratification, again, she construes it to be an enormous effort, as many committed women do. He would prefer it to be a willful obligation by both partners rather than it being on some form of a one-sided physical violation to her body. But that is wishful thinking and is unfortunately not the mainstream behavior of women. Man's logic dictates, why be reluctant since a sexual climax is an intense thrill for both partners? A woman's logic is, if the itch isn't strong enough, why scratch it without a price for the initial work effort? If she has a personal desire for it, then she would act like a lady but think like a man. In spite of sexual complaints toward women, they truly have the ability to change their mindset to share sexual authority equally without deception. Understanding man's nature is to realize the significance of his sexual aggression, that demands a constant mission to initiate procreation. We can't help that, that's nature. He genetically inherits a sexual urge that is too powerful to ignore. Although most men will never discuss this because it depicts him to be sexually weak, vulnerable, or out of control, and once again, with a stripped virile image. Even the male species of animals has a sensational sexual drive, and by natural instinct, I would say, will aggressively copulate with the opposite sex continuously without self-control. At the risk of overtaxing the woman's sexual nature, a man is encouraged to control or tone down his activity, unless, of course, her sexual urge is already matched with his, in which case there is no contest. Instead of having sex every day, for example, he would compromise with his mate, opting for, say, every other day. A man desiring sexual activity every other day can compromise his activity for twice weekly. Twice weekly may be compromised for once a week. Keep in mind that his compromise is based on his own insatiable sex drive that will vary from man to man, but will still elicit to be more frequent than what most women want. Young men who are at their sexual prime are easily most challenged. It is rare, however, that any man is privileged to have sex frequent enough to match the full extent of his sensational urge. But his spouse may mistakenly measure this full extent to be, say, twice per week, when his true biological need would be twice daily. She will therefore initiate an unfair compromise with the wrong assessment by mistakenly meeting him, say, halfway for sexual activity to be only once per week. Although in most cases, most women today do not compromise and mainly have sex when they decide, even if it's just every few months. This can be quite a difficult scenario to know what would be fair activity between couples. But in all practical fairness, biological needs should have the priority. Come on, this is ordered by nature. Men, therefore, should be given the benefit of the doubt because, once again, his hormones are designed to greatly intensify his urge, thus giving him the natural overwhelming need to spawn. She must let him be the one to define his level of sexual enthusiasm because it is his body and no one knows it better. Be it as it may, and not unlike the wife, when the husband is intimate or sexually active with her, it is also his closest security bond that maintains his sense of belonging or being needed, except as a man, he is primarily compelled to serve and protect using all of his physical and mental resources available. This philosophy is true for any man dedicated to a lifelong mission that is beneficial to him and his spouse or significant other. The bottom line that men in general are not really sexually respected by the majority of women and thus have to work hard mentally and physically if they want to truly satisfy their sexual urges. A committed, insecure woman giving less sexual activity to her partner will favor his efforts to work harder because uh, to because to consider having sex more often is taboo in her mind. As less sex gives her more work days off, so to speak, especially when she is not in the mood and her sexual enthusiasm is subtle most of the time. In truth, many women that are pressured to have more sex than they desire are apprehensive and paranoid by their own insecure delusions that they may be simulating a lifestyle of a pro bono whore who allows herself to be taken advantage of with no respect or real value to her sexual nature that will soon become powerless. Oh boy. On the other hand, as long as their sexual activity is minimized and secure with steady bedroom cuddles, and is also given the ongoing reassurances that their virtues are with high standards and contributions or assets are offered to support their well being, they will then sustain their integrity and feel secure with having significant value as a lady, equal to the value of her significant man. As many women have adopted this mindset, it unfortunately flips the script to stereotype men. Many detractors label men to have a whorish nature and are therefore deemed to be sexually powerless due to their willingness to share unconditional, indiscriminate, and unprincipled sex without the need for emotional ties or even worldly trade-offs from a single woman. Whorish men benefit only an orgasm, and whorish women benefits are mostly money, material, with an orgasm being last, excluding highly sexed women as described earlier. If they both, however, can share and inherit something more permanent in their sexual involvement with spiritual values instead of man-made artistries, then no one has to feel cheap, victimized, whorish, or worthless. The most popular reason why many heterosexual men sleep around or fornicate is due to being sexually deprived by his sexual partner, and or she no longer shows the interest or eagerness to motivate him. This behavior dampens a man's spirit and willingness to be generous. For this reason, his continuous efforts to stimulate her various material and complex emotional needs has become too taxing and challenging and difficult. This includes instigating his lack of interest to observe certain days of the year that are very special to her. The main reason many women sleep around is because generally she is on the verge of breaking up with her benevolent partner who is not generous enough to support her lifestyle or not providing other needed benefits, especially if she has children that are not being cared for by her personal standards. The celibate woman, however, wants to offer her spiritual values first to inspire a man into a monogamous relationship. What is interesting, though, is that many of the same women that may not have sexually satisfied their previous partners for selfish or biased reasons are basically hypocritical by willing to satisfy other people's partners for financial reasons without any ties. As in all things, there could be also other circumstances to elicit these transgressions, such as an abusive home life or revenge against her current partner due to his sexual infidelities. Yet, an unhappy sex life can also breed future home life disasters, such as continuing this vicious cycle of retaliatory infidelities. The stereotype is still nonetheless outrageous to committed men that have demonstrated love and honor to a woman's integrity.